Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back to our second episode of Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce. And we're just going to kind of ad hoc this a little bit here today. Welcome back, Bryce. The community seems to really enjoy what we started last week, so we're going to keep rolling with this and talking about through the conspiracies and the theories to get to the common sense reality so that people have a realistic idea of what to do to protect themselves and be prepared in the financial hellscape that we keep seeming to be sliding into quicker and quicker and quicker. But before I let you loose on some of the things of the day, I kind of wanted to play a clip of something that you were speaking to this past weekend in Victoria, I believe.
No, this was a Stand United event in Vancouver. Apparently, they had a whole bunch of rallies across the country, and I spoke for about 10 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to play just a quick little clip of this. It's going to really very succinctly get people off on the right foot as to what the point and purpose of us gathering here today and in future episodes is all about. So let's try.
But what we have to realize is that only through opposition will we get where we want to go. If we don't want to be where they want us to go, where do we want to go? What is the system we want to live in? Think for a second on where our world is going to be and look like 10 years from now. 10 years. I can barely think 2 years in the future because of all the crazy stuff that's happening this year alone, right? They want us to be in a position that is not good for us. So if you don't want to be where that is, you have to do this. You have to organize. And that's the second option, which is a revolution, right? That's been tried a lot of times over history, but that's a lot of death. There's a lot of destruction, and things don't go well for a lot of people. And that's why the third option is kind of my favorite, which is a renaissance. There was only ever one in history, and that renaissance happened because people had better ideas. They said, I want something better. I want to organize better. I think I want more rights for me and my family and the people that I care about, right? To get to that place, you have to be organized. You have to spend your time. When I mentioned democracy, right, there's that vote and that voice. Everything that you do, every choice that you make, every action that you take, every thought that you have is a choice. You get to decide what you do every day. Every day that you wake up, that you're not in jail, and you can make decisions. You have ultimate authority over yourself about what you do every day. So that I hope out of this, what I've spoken about today, is that you take this opportunity before things collapse. Because I'm telling you now, the economic problems, the war problems that we face, there's infinite amount of problems that are getting worse. Think about any problem that you can think of. Is it getting better or worse? Almost entirely worse, because it's been intentionally created that way. If you don't want to suffer from those consequences of those problems, you and your family and your community and anybody that you care about and want to work with, you have to be organized, because again, that is the only thing that they fear. So I implore you and I offer you the opportunity. Use a whole bunch of people here. Go beyond just saying, I oppose something. You have to work towards an alternative, no matter what the problem is. Any problem that is out there that you can see, there's a solution to that. You just have to find it and organize and take action. So thank you for the opportunity to talk today.
And that was a whole bunch of points in one slam dunk minute and 30 seconds of where we're at and some of the things that we need to get better at. And Bryce, you nailed it. We need to get more organized. Things are getting worse, exponentially quicker. Everything is a manufactured crisis and problem, and there is 100% a solution for it, for all of the problems. And I don't think there's anybody better at creating solutions in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that we face, and I said earlier in that speech that it's easy to get blackpilled and it's easy to be defeatist, but that's what they want. That's what they believe, that if we get to the point where we don't believe we can do anything, we won't. And so I think it's very important to maintain that. I don't want to call it hope, because it's not hope, it's certainty that you have the ability to do something, because you do. we have choices that we make every day, and if you make good choices, you get to a better place than if you make bad choices.
100%. And I've really been deep diving on trying to separate the difference and the distance between what is the digital majority in appearance that puts people in this defeatist place that say, "Oh well, there's nothing we can do." There's they just do what they want. They just place their candidates. And I disagree with that. I think that that is exactly us putting ourselves where they want us in believing that that digital majority that makes it so loud in the environments that we occupy is not the reality. The solution to that is not just united non-compliance, it's united cooperation and coalition work. And I think that reality is we've forgotten how to place a candidate, so that makes it easier for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you think of it in that fashion, it's a political solution, or at least a political problem, right? Because these institutions, there's a really good quote that I heard off of Canadian Prepper that was, "We have Neolithic brains with medieval technology, with medieval institutions and godlike technology." Really good quote, because that's essentially where we are now. These institutions were built centuries, if not millennia ago, and are administered by people that are part of these secret societies or a bunch of different nonsense that are not having the people that they're supposed to represent in their in the forefront of their mind and what they're working for. And I think if that we had actual government of by and for the people, that wouldn't be as much of a problem, because say what you want about the US now, but when it was founded, it was exactly that, and they had the greatest increase in human development, standard of living in all of human history in a very short amount of time, strictly because the organization of these people was vastly changed and upgraded to something that benefited the net amount of people as much as possible. Now, there's hard argument to be made against that. Yes, there were still slaves and all that sort of jazz. I get that. But at the same time, they had a goal that they were like, all people are equal and all deserve equal rights, right? And that idea is something that needs to be embodied by the actions of said government. Obviously, it doesn't anymore for obvious reasons, but the fact is that you need the idea and people to believe in the idea to have the actions that follow.
Well, we have to get away from this convenience survival and thinking that our weight on that scale isn't necessary. Somebody else is going to do that for us. Freedom is not a communist sport. It is. It takes participation. And I think that this, even just looking at the disparity between the electoral vote, what was it, 59% voted, Trudeau gets in with 29%. That tells me that 40% of the population is going, I don't care, or it's a hopeless case. And so he gets in with such a minority, and this is me not saying that there's a political solution. This is me addressing political problems and the state where it has us in, and working and living from it as a society. We cannot wait for that. We have to organize and first take a full opportunity within that antiquated dinosaur political system. And you're right, we absolutely need change. We're living in a Bugatti world, and we're trying to allow ox cart drivers to drive it off the cliff because we simply just don't want to take the risk of getting engaged, because that risk seems to be dominated by that digital majority.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually telling that if you think about it from a technological aspect, right? What are the technologies that we use that are hundreds of years old, like the wheel, a pencil, like basics of tools, stuff like that? But why would we use government designed hundreds of years ago that is clearly obsolete, right? People still use pen and paper. Like, I see people in the Congress down in the States, because I watch a lot of politics, still use pen and paper, bro. Like, what are we doing? This stuff is so obsolete, because you got to think too, is that when you have people that can deploy resources like that, well, it takes years for whatever to run through the system to be like, oh wow, maybe we should have done that. Oh, that was unconstitutional or whatever. years after it happened, when like from the get-go, it'd be like a C-63, perfect example. Obviously unconstitutional. Like you just imprison somebody for bad words on the internet for life.
For thinking about maybe posting bad
exactly.
words on the internet for life.
Literal Minority Report. Is that gonna be constitutional? Obviously not. But we have to wait and be in prison for years before we have to appeal it and get it struck down. Like it's insane. What a terrible system.
This falls exactly in line with the conversation that I had with my guest last night, where instead of debating the semantics of the jab being safe or not, it should have stopped at it was unethical before we ever even got to that part. Whether it was constitutional or not, I mean, you're exactly right. We have to get to the pre-questions, and we seem to be skipping over those and allowing people to we'll worry about that next year. The budget will balance itself mentality.
I know, you're living in a clown world, man.
Well, we are living in the most interesting of human times, unquestionably. But there, in the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? And this comes down to one of the the non-negotiable understandings are that precious metals, gold, silver, these kinds of things are a stable, reliable currency that will make the world go around. I was in some meetings this afternoon, and I'm going to have some guests coming on to speak to all of this. Well, there's an entire economy that is starting to evolve and grow out of using hard currencies rather than these antiquated systems that are absolutely stacked, designed and manufactured to put us in this helpless, hopeless state of ignorance. And it's a manufactured state of ignorance. It's not that Canadians are stupid, but the facts, the truth, and reality have been hidden from us for generations, not just since Trudeau Jr.
Yeah. And I think it is telling as well that we have all of this data that we can look at. We've never had more data to look at in all of human history. Nearly the sum total of human knowledge is essentially at our fingertips now. And there's never been more people that are A, don't know, but B, and worse, refuse to look. And even when they're shown, they're like, no, I don't believe it.
We have, what is it, 100 times the tech in one of these than they use to get to the moon, if you buy the moon story. But all of those things aside, but this creates a problem where we manufacture our own complexities in our world to create the problems. We do that. We make things more complicated than they absolutely need to be, and we create this. This is exactly the mindset behind bureaucracy. I think the greatest job growth in Canada has been a 40% increase in bureaucracy and government employees in Canada since Trudeau took over.
Yeah, and Freeland literally came out last week, the week before. It's like, oh, we created 40,000 jobs. You imported 4 million people in the last half number of years. Like, what are we talking about? Like, did all of those people get jobs? I doubt it. And lots of people are being fired right now. So how is that even possible? Did you hire them yourself? Like, these numbers are just insane. They literally just pulled out of thin air. And one of the things that bothers me the most about the data that we have access to is there's no way to verify it. Like, the whole reason that they want these digital IDs and central bank digital currencies is so they can control and have absolute accuracy with everything related to everything that you do. But we don't get anything the other way. We don't have any transparency whatsoever about what the government is doing with our money. What is the concept?
My question is of those 40,000 new jobs and 400,000 new Canadians per year, are those new jobs created for them? Because I don't see those jobs going to quote unquote old stock Canadians for the most part. It's just the DEI, gender equity hiring, tick the box hiring has replaced any opportunity or to support or grow Canadian. And this is a part of the whole new Great Reset based on equity, where Trudeau thinks that we can, by managing our micro pennies for us, that gives him more to give and be a hero in third world countries on the other side of the planet. And I think that is one of the pillars, the four cornerstones of the imminent threat in the financial system. And you broke it down in that video. I'll share the link to your speech in the chat here in just a minute, Bryce. But you brought up 4 points that are manifesting itself as the existential threat based on the financial situation. Throw them out there for us. So it's from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. So like the 4 pillars of enslavement that we face are these 4 bars of the cage, if you will. And that's digital IDs, number 1, central bank digital currencies, number 2, microchips in your hand, number 3, and 15-minute cities, number 4. And so what this allows the administrators to be generous about who they are, is what it allows them to do is have absolute control and knowledge of everything that you do. And let me just get through this example because I think it hits home. So with the digital IDs, right? And you actually showed me an article about this. Basically, everything that's connected to who you are, so your social insurance number, how much money in your bank account, your your DNA information, literally anything about you is connected to this digital ID. Now we kind of already have one of those with like a Google ID and stuff like that, but it's not connected to anything else, so it's in its own little ecosystem. But what this digital ID allows them to do is say, now we can connect anything we want and everything about you to this one thing. Now you connect that to central bank digital currencies, right? And so if you have the only one way to purchase or transact in our ecosystem or our economy or our society, right, that makes them able to monitor and decide whether or not you can do that transaction. So let's say that I ate too much meat this week or whatever. Like, oh, boop, now you don't get to eat any more meat, right? Yeah, exactly. And so they're also going to connect, and this should scare everybody. So they're going to connect carbon credits to this. So they're going to give you a set amount of carbon credits, and if you go over it, you don't get to buy anything more that they don't want you to buy. Right? For that, right now, it's voluntary, but eventually it's going to be mandatory, and it won't be so voluntary. Now, yeah, go ahead.
No, carry on.
So the second one is really control of all finance. So they're basically disconnecting the physical economy from reality. So because it'll be under control by a digital economy, right? Which they will have absolute control over because it's a direct control by the central banks. Okay. Now the third part is a really important one. So the microchip that they're already pushing, they're already talking about, that's already been experimented, lots of stuff happening with that already. People have been volunteering for it in like Sweden or Switzerland or somewhere for years. I saw this years ago.
We've all seen the picture with the X-ray with the little chip in the hand, and that's ancient technology in that industry already. They've got it down to a science here now, where they can give you a little invisible tattoo to the exact same equivalent. You don't even see it, you don't even feel it, you don't even know it's there. But this is now your interface with the future.
Yeah, exactly. And there's 2 things that make this the next level. So just having a digital ID is fine. Well, it's not, but you know what I mean. It's there, right? But connecting it to your physical person, which you can never get out of. The important part here is that you can't get it out, right? So with a phone, with a digital ID, at least I can throw it away, walk out into the woods and say, "Screw everybody, I'm out of here." Right? Pull an Eric Cartman, "Screw everybody, I'm going home." Right? And what this allows them to do, not only to know exactly where you are at all times, no matter what, and all of the other things beyond that, is that what if there's something in there, like it doesn't take very much fentanyl to kill you. So they could potentially have a kill switch in there. You would never know. Do you look at the technology? Do you know how big it is? Do you know what capabilities this thing has? They're like, hey, just trust us, bro. It's the science. and they just put whatever they want in you. Like, you don't get to verify what they put in you. They just say, hey, you're getting a digital ID tag. Cool. And so the last kind of connection of this thing is the 15-minute cities. So what they're essentially creating is, with these 4 systems that you have to live in, so they have you essentially geotagged to certain areas. So if you go outside of that, they can automatically find you, take it right out of your bank account. If you screw around too many times, they can literally just hit a button, and now you can't do anything. You're in jail, essentially. And if you screw around even more too many times, they just hit a button, and you're absolutely removed from society permanently. And the kicker to this, and this is why this is important. So this is the ultimate kicker of this, right? After this is instituted, every single person born into it will never know anything else. And it will be literal, physical, actual slavery for all time for every person that is a part of it. And you will never be able to resist. You'll never be able to get out. You will literally be a slave forever. And they have ultimate decision on whether you live or die, and the rest of your family and your bloodline as well.
We are so close to all being Kurt Russell in Escape from New York than we could possibly imagine. Like literally have a kill switch within us and be limited to a geometric boundary where they have 100% surveillance, Hunger Games, watching your behavior, all of these things, they seem and they make it sound so nice and comfy and looking after everybody. It's for our safety. It's for the when every one of these things is just a piece to the puzzle of the web meant to destroy everything that resembles any kind of civilized species or on the planet or nation states. I was looking at an article about the freedom on the Freedom Index, and 52 nations lost freedoms in the last year. This is a real bad trajectory. So when I see people say it's time to get out of Canada, I don't
Where are you
think
going to go?
Changes anything. Doesn't change anything.
Nothing. And I know a lot of people that have left. And for anybody out there that's considering this, I understand where you're coming from. I know you lost confidence in Canada because of all the idiots that are running the show. I get it. But think of this for a second, okay? In this system, it does not matter where you are on the planet. It does not matter where you go. It does not matter who you know, and it does not matter where you get to. Eventually, they will find you. They will get to you. We have satellites above us. They can see everybody 100% of the time. There's nowhere that you can run except underground. And even then, they can still probably see you, right? So one of the things that's happening right now is that they're building bunkers and subterranean stuff like it's going out of style, because at some point, the war that they're pushing on us is actually going to start in earnest with the East. And I think personally that we're probably going to lose for a variety of reasons. I don't think that, we're really being set up for success here. If we really wanted to win a nuclear war, we would not be acting in the way that we are. But we are in the situation that we're in. So what that means basically is that whatever gets destroyed above ground or wherever it gets destroyed, they're going to come for whoever's left and institute these systems, right? So after World War II, most of the world was obliterated because of war, and the U.S. was like, "I got a great economy. Why don't we just use us for the world reserve currency?" Because England got destroyed, and so they created a new paradigm after World War II called the Bretton Woods Agreement that was the bedrock of the new economic system, which before it was completely destroyed, which it could arguably be said it already was because of the central banks. But put that aside for a second. We had a massive increase in economic activity because of this new organization of international trade. Well, that's coming to an end in a variety of different ways. And what they're planning to institute after the Third World War, I just explained.
Well, and the interesting comparison that nobody is making is that it is only Western oligarchs that are racing to build nuclear bunkers. Nobody in the East, our supposed enemy, is racing out to build themselves nuclear bunkers.
Not quite true. China and North Korea have ungodly amounts of underground stuff, as do the Russians.
But that's military. Those are military. It's not the oligarchs that are manifesting it. That's their response to the culture that ultimately I think that we have to take responsibility for over here. For us, the Cold War never died and never ended, and our culture and society over here has absolutely zero awareness of what reality is on the other side of the planet. For example, in Russia, Russia right now is not the USSR before 1991, and we still look at it, think of it in that way. And they have gone a very different route. And collectively, I think if it hasn't been demonstrated that the utopian West is not a military adversary against these guys. Collectively, NATO is getting their asses handed to them by one nation while they're continuing to provoke all of these logical nations that we are supposed to oppose. That doesn't end well for us if we continue to head down this trajectory, or our governments. Our people don't want this shit. There's absolutely nobody, no rational human being that wants any of this garbage.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a little case in point on to highlight this is Ireland, where the government unanimously says, yeah, we're going to change the definition of a woman. And they actually gave the people a democratic voice, and the people overwhelmingly said, no, you don't. Who has the authority then? If that isn't the demonstration, the people overwhelmingly say no, the government says yes. What's the outcome actually going to be?
And this is really a good question for how a democracy actually functions, right? So think for a second on a representative democracy, right? Let's say there's 100 people in a room. We have to elect one person to represent us, okay? We do that. We vote, and 65% one person, whatever, right? Now a person represents that 100 people, okay? They go and talk to a bunch of other people that are represented by a bunch of other people, or representing a bunch of other people, right? So we have this big room of 100 people, let's say, that are all representing 100 people each, right? So what is that? 10,000 people altogether. Now, if those people that are in that one room of, what would that be, 100 people that are representing 100 people, they all get together and say, hey guys, I think it would be great if we all take the money from everybody else, right? We all get money, everybody else loses. Let's do it. Let's have a vote on it, right? And so some of those people obviously would be like, no, that's bullshit. But then you say, hey, the people that are voting, that have the power to vote, are saying, yeah, let's do it. So they win by 65%. Now, even if all of like 100% of those other people that are being represented by those 100 people disagree, their vote and their voice are worthless and meaningless, right? And so where is the divide, and where is the threshold that the people that are being represented by somebody else get to say, and remove the person that is representing them because they're not representing them, right? And I'll finish on this example. So back in ancient Greece and Athens, right, they had this process. I can't remember the name of the process offhand, but essentially it worked like this. You would get, once a year, everybody would get the opportunity to throw a name in the middle of the square. You'd write a name on this little tablet, whatever, throw it in the square. And so if there was enough votes of, like, there's like 30 or 40 or 50% or something of everybody that was voting, if they voted to that same person, so nobody talked to anybody, they just throw a name in the pile. But if everybody if that one person got enough votes, they were banned from life in Athens. So it was essentially like a checks and balances on corruption. So if somebody got, and it could be literally anybody in society. And so if somebody got too corrupt or too uppity or whatever, boom, kicked out. And they got rid of that, and that was one of the starts of the decline of Athens as a democratic power, is because corruption took hold and people in power kept power, and then they started taking it from other people.
It was they say that Greece was the greatest democracy in history. Well, it was also Greece that voted to execute Socrates, the greatest philosopher in history. So
Exactly.
that's a good example of the full circle of democracy. But this is where distinguishing the difference between democracy and freedom. It's an action sport, and democracy, using your voice, will obviously, as we're seeing, only take us so far, where it takes action. It takes the physical action of getting involved and putting something at risk on the table to force the democracy or the effects, the desired effects. There's just absolutely no other way. And then we're moving into a completely different zone here in Canada, because this is, we're having to learn truth and get organized in the face of the learning curve.
Yeah, and the amount, I think I mentioned this before, but the amount of information that's out there, like, where do you focus on what's happening, right? Like, I could literally sit here all day and be, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem, and that's a problem. But ultimately it comes back to the same problem, which is that we've got corrupt people managing a corrupt system and using our money stolen from us to use against us. So I mean, the problem is ultimately the same with most of these problems.
At the end of the day, I have, and it struck me again earlier today. Like him or hate him, Chris Sky was 100% correct when he said united non-compliance is the only way forward. But now I think we have to evolve that into an organized action to go with the united non-compliance. Just saying no or I want this. That's using democracy, but taking action, removing ourselves from the system, creating alternative currencies, environments, parallel communities, shopping, supply chain, replacing all of those things is the next evolution. And I'm excited to say that I'm seeing a lot of that happening now, but it takes time. It's all part of the learning curve of moving forward. And I think we're at that tipping point where people are realizing, okay, just saying no wasn't enough. Now we need to do something. And this is where I think that we can do better as a country. And to come back to one of the comments made earlier, time to get out of Canada, go somewhere else. It's going to be, no, it's not going to be any better. But here's the point, the crux of the point. It's not going to be any better, or even if it is, it's only going to be temporarily, because there is no other country where we are going to have an opportunity to resist and fight back, to do something. We are going to be, if we surrender and just sit in the corner and sulk and wait for it to happen, no other country is going to have the ability to move and do things like Canadians still have. I think we are still the land of opportunity.
I very much agree on this point, and there's a couple of reasons why. So you got to look at, like I said last week, war is a game of logistics. Okay, so like logistics means that you have resources, skills, and assets to deploy against a problem. Normally, that goal is, and that problem is killing your enemies and whatever. But in this respect, it's really for survival, right? So what does the war for survival really mean in that sense, right? So when you look at around the world, what do you see? So we got the U.S., which is ungodly amounts of debt. They're literally at war with other countries now. Again, whatever. We've got Europe that's essentially deindustrializing because they can't get cheap energy from Russia anymore. Their economy is problems. There's a whole bunch of unlimited immigration all across the West. Africa has always been Africa. It's basically civil war on like a massive scale. The East is full of authoritarians, just in general. India is kind of the standout from that. Like, where in the world do you really have people that are like, hey, I don't want war. How are we going to work together and collaborate and live together so we don't have to kill each other to survive, right? We have the space, we have the resources, we have the ideas. What we don't have is the organization and the political capacity to make this change. Like, and I think I've mentioned before, so maybe if you want to, but I joined the Conservative Party because it buys me essentially a voice and a vote, right? Guaranteed that I get to stand up and talk in a group of people that are, supposedly against or for different things, and I consider myself a centrist, but I'm also a strategic voter, right? And so I'm not connecting this particular idea to a particular party. But what I am saying is that you have to be able to organize, right? And that is an existing structure that our country is built on. It's obviously not working and it's obsolete and it needs upgrades. And I've saying that for like 20 years basically. But at this point, right, what do we have available that we can use to affect this change, right? People get dejected and defeated about politics all of the time because our politicians are such morons, right? But the fact is that the politics is an arena of ideas, right? And you're supposed to be representing ideas. You're supposed to be representing actions that are going to be taken to achieve a goal, right? And C63 is a perfect example of this, right? They are now representing absolute communism and absolute authoritarianism, and I would say fascism as well. But they are representing that, and they're saying specifically, I am going to arrest you if I determine that you did something I deem hateful. That is a straight out of the communist playbook, straight out of the USSR, been used in China. Like this is literally the Cultural Revolution in actuality, right? There's that old saying, the revolution isn't going to be televised. Bullshit! It's on TV every day. What are you talking about, man? It's literally on TV every day.
Yeah, I think it's more online than it is on TV, to be honest with you. So we could,
exactly.
could play the semantic
That's the new TV.
game with that, right? But it's true though, because so much of what is happening in the communications around the world is not happening on television, and that was the go-to medium for 50 years, and that is going the way of the dinosaur. Without corruption, it no longer exists at all. In this disconnect from reality that has gone so far so fast to the extreme absurd, I think was kind of necessary for people to really snap them out of that hypnotism or the satanic lullaby of reality of how bad things really are, on how many different facets of it, and to the degrees of how broken Canada is. And we have a short runway where we can A, prepare ourselves, B, fortify ourselves, and C, get organized to take advantage of opportunities. Although they might not be perfect, they either buy us time or they push back the enemy. But taking a more militarized strategic approach to understanding what is going on is absolutely critical at this point in time, because that's really what they're doing with and against us. And the thing that they fear the most is us getting organized, because they know we are by far the vast majority, not even just some voting majority, but as a population, we are the vast majority.
Yeah, and this is why there's kind of a race between the Great Reset and the Great Awakening, right? Because they know that if they don't get to a point, because the internet really opened up an opportunity for humanity that was never really there before, be able to talk to each other at scale, right? That's never really happened before, because it was always a controlled system before then, right? And so X, I hate calling it that, Twitter, but even shows like this, where there's some level of engagement from the audience, and you have the ability to say, I think this thing, right? I have technically more voice on Facebook than in my own government. That's insane. Like, how does that make sense? Like I have no connection to my representative, other than like I show up once in a while, I'll give them a high five and like, hey, hope you do what I want you to do, and they obviously don't, right? It's a ridiculous system, but like I said before, it's because it was designed 150 years ago, and nobody in the government has ever tried to upgrade it. So if we were going to update this as a group of people, say everybody's like, all right, everybody, this is a problem. Everybody sucks. The system is garbage. Parasites are running it, right? We don't like any of this. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to upgrade it? And what does that system look like, so that we have the ability to be like, you know what, that guy's got a good idea over there. That chick over there was really good. I like that. Like, let's have a vote. Let's have a talk. Let's have a discussion, and some sort of process that is. And I think even more important than this, accountability for people that are supposed to be making these decisions. Because I don't know if you've been following Arrive Scam this week, but the amount of moronic things that these two bozos at GC Strategy said is unbelievable. It's insane. Like, so you were supposed to administrate this thing. Did you see any of the data? No, I don't know anything about it. So you made millions of dollars off of Canadians, but you don't know anything about it? Correct. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Like, this is insane. Like, this is the most blatant example of corruption, and these idiots printed $650 billion. How much of that, as a percentage, do you think went to where it was supposed to go, instead of somebody's pocket or some nonsense garbage project they just thought out and like, oh, we'll throw $10 billion over to Ukraine for the hell of it? You know what I mean? Like, these people are insane, and the reason that they continue to be insane is because there's no consequences, there's no accountability, there's no system set up to ensure that they can't continue doing this. Be like, hey, remember that time we made 10 million off those guys? Let's do it again.
Well, they not just eliminated the checks and balances in our system that used to exist. They weaponized the loopholes, captured the establishment and the policymakers to make legal all of the crimes that were previously illegal, immoral, and unethical. And they've continued this cycle for decades now. And you're right that the first biggest flaw in the system is that there is absolutely no accountability. But what makes it worse is we literally have the governments committing crimes against the government and the people in government, and to the point of they're committing some of the most heinous crimes in human history, in my opinion. When you mean arrive scam. I remember when $18 glass of orange juice caused a resignation in Parliament, but yet $650 billion expenditure through a crime syndicate. And that's without even looking at Canada's involvement with the Winnipeg bioweapons facility and the bioweapons research that is still ongoing, and their involvement in the biggest biohazard weapons assault on humanity and the repercussions, and they're all profiteering from it. Every nonprofit union and great many politicians all made bank off of having printing companies or sticker companies or all of those kinds of things that all reaped the benefits of the ripple effects of biological warfare.
Yeah,
That's how
and
bad Canada actually is.
absolutely, and I gotta go back to this point a lot, is that if we're going to go in a different direction, something has to change, because we're not just going to be like, I voted for Pierre as an example, and it's all going to get better. Like, I don't believe that for a second. I'm a card carrying conservative now. So, like, in my book, right, it's not enough to put your trust in anybody else, but the people in your physical community, because the people in your physical community are in the same boat you are. Wherever you live, the people around you are a community, whether you like it or not, right? And if you don't think about your situation in that perspective, in to some degree, you're not really looking at the true picture of where you're standing, right? Because, and I've used this, I think about it, said it this week, or last week, but I'll say it again because I think it bears repeating. Every person in a community is a plus or a minus for that community. You're either doing something and adding to it, or you're detracting from it and making it worse, right? And so when you get enough people in a community, it becomes a lot more of a logistical nightmare to manage everybody and control everybody and whatever, right? But there's only two ways to control people: by consent or by force, right? And so if you don't have people that are consenting to whatever this process that we're talking about here, so like we're living in a village or something, we're all going to be farmers or whatever, we're living in a city and we're going to be engineers, whatever the process is, right? There's certain minimums that you have to take care of, otherwise the society collapses. And this, what I'm talking about right now, that collapse of civilization, has happened hundreds, if not thousands of times over history, and it's happening right now in slow motion that we're living through, unless we put a stop to it, unless we say, hey, enough is enough, we can't go in this direction anymore, you screwed up, get out. Who's going to take responsibility for this? Who's going to do it? Who's going to do what they say they're going to do? And who's going to have the strong enough and good enough ideas that are going to fix these problems? And a really good example of this is Javier Milei, the Argentinian guy that just got in. That guy is doing work. He fired so many people that were incompetent losers out of the government that were clearly not working, and he basically just now, like I literally saw this today, has a positive cash flow in the country now. Hasn't had that in decades.
20
and
years.
so
20
yeah,
years.
yeah, exactly. And so it takes, I don't want to call this
Very short period of time.
Yeah, but this is what I mean, is that somebody believed in something, took the necessary action, said, I'm going to do this, did that, and got the results. That in and of itself is the process of evolution. I think a thing, I did a thing, I achieved a thing. That is what evolution is. And if we're going to evolve past the garbage that we got now, that's what we have to do too.
I think it's the leader of El Salvador. Same thing. Turned the country around on a dime by actually representing the good of the nation, and eliminating the corruption. Has he come down heavy-handed on the cartels and the crime? Yeah, he certainly has. But anybody tell me where that isn't something that's required in Canada as well? And here's the thing about it: it doesn't matter whether you're in a suburb or a town or a city or a province or a country. If you create enough chaos, havoc, death, and destruction, and you don't fix it yourself, somebody else will come and fix it. They will end it and likely end you. And nobody, again, wants any of this happening. And this literally has to be Canadians fixing the problems, not these bureaucrats. We have to learn how to demand and move and operate the system. I'm starting to see glimpses of the people actually operating perhaps the Conservative Party, but that only comes through mass enlightenment, through mass awareness, and through mass demand before the election. It'll never happen after the election. We need to get organized and be making the right demands now so that we can actually achieve some legitimate change. And just, it's not to say that some of the things that he's babbling about aren't important. They are, but they aren't the ones of critical distinction that we have to come together on and establish in no uncertain terms that government itself will fail if they doesn't start to actually represent the people. And I think accountability it needs to be a big thing. Just letting Trudeau slide out of office and his syndicate just slide out of office, conveniently not run again or whatever the case might be, and go and enjoy their ill-gotten gains and proceeds of crimes, that's not acceptable. That cannot be acceptable. Just voting Pierre in and going, things will change. That cannot be acceptable. And none of this is going to happen without engagement by the people.
No, I agree. And what kind of bothers me about the Conservatives is that we have like unlimited examples. Like just think for a second. When I say Trudeau scandal, what does that bring up for you? It's like a 50 thing long list.
253 ethics violations. I saw an actual list. 253.
I actually wrote one just off the top of my head, and it was 2 pages. It's unbelievable. But like, it's silence on all of this stuff. So it pisses me off about the Conservatives, the party that I'm now a part of, and I'm sure I'm going to get flack for this, but I don't care. Is that we're not actually talking about the real things. Like, we now spend more on our debt than on healthcare and our military. That is absurd. And for a conservative to be like, I'm a fiscal conservative, and not be talking about that outrageous amount of money that's now going to debt that got us worse inflation, destroyed economy, and unemployment, and massive immigration all at the same time, it's insane. And so what bothers me most about all of these problems is that the people that are supposed to be opposing them, are A, barely talking about them, and B, not saying what they would do instead. So like, what are we even talking about here? What do you mean? Okay, you oppose it, good for you. And what do you mean? What are we going to do then? Like, there's no solution. It's just like, I don't agree. Well, good for you.
I've been choking on one word, and I brought it up last week as well. And I see today Polyev again ranting, no World Economic Forum involvement. Da, da, da. Why, Pierre? He still won't open his mouth about a single damn why. And this is the noise that has to be the loudest in the conservative room that they're actually paying attention to, because right now they are listening to the winds of the political sway to decide which way to go. And these are the things that we have to get organized in our mass demands: accountability, get us out of these suicide arrangements and agreements and policies, not just acts to tax. Acts to tax is the tax itself is merely a evolution of exactly the policies implemented by these unelected foreign entities. So we have to cut those heads, those poison pumps, right out of our country entirely. Then acts to tax actually means something.
Yeah, I agree. And a couple of people in the chat here made a really good point. So this, and you made a really good point on this as well. So the stuff that we're facing, right? So we have the WHO treaty, we've got C63 now, we've got universal basic income, which is literally to bankrupt the company, or the
100%.
company, the Corporation of Canada, the country, right? And so all of these things. So if we're going to say, I oppose this stuff, why is it not being said and these people being raked over the coals? Like C63 is a literal pre-crime. What are these people What are these people talking about, man? And like everybody should follow this if you care enough about Canadian politics, which I'm sure a lot of people don't, but I'm sure people that are part of your audience do. There's a great channel called Mr. Sunshine Baby. Odd name, I know, but he is really good at covering.
I follow him.
Yeah, really good at covering kind of the stuff that these people say. And every time I can only do it for a couple times during the day because I just get so infuriated that we have nearly 400 people that just stand up and clap like seals. Everything. Oh, you said some authoritarian garbage right there. Let me just clap for that. It's insane. Like this system is so abysmally obsolete and inefficient. It literally gives me physical anger. That's because how stupid this stuff is.
I completely 100% agree and relate and empathize. Again, it has to come back to the understanding that this is by design. This is how they want us angry and frustrated, and why it's so critical for us to get organized so that we don't continue to get more and more angry and frustrated. And we're winding down on the hour here, and I wanted to bring this other article up to highlight that these guys are manufacturing this discontent. Now, this is an article that I just got a hold of today. It was published yesterday, but this is a statement, an explanation from the RCMP on why they are considering or will be considering Canadians a threat, a major threat. Our intelligence and security agencies are thinking of you as a major threat because you might be upset that you will own nothing and you'll be forced to own nothing and be happy. And this, I'll share the link to this article again in the chat so people can talk about this one and read it themselves. And follow up on it. But this literally is articulating whether RCMP actually understands, they actually do understand the reasons why we're going to be upset, and they're expecting to treat us as a threat to the country and the nation and to your security because because we're not going to be happy with the globalist implementation of things. So that's, to me, the projection of the false flag. They're going to be saying, oh, the conspiracy theorists that believe this, not you can't own, you won't own anything and you'll be happy, are now dangerous, and we need this bill C-63 to protect everybody and jail forever these political discontents.
Yeah. And this is one of the major reasons that gun control is such a hot topic for these communists, is that they don't want everybody to have the physical ability to resist, right? I'm not sure if you guys remember, but there was a article that came out, I want to say 2023, but it might even have been 2022, that was basically like, hey, we're going to develop this new agency that's all about climate change. We're going to give them, they're going to be armed. They're going to give a climate change agency weapons. and here, this is the thing, and I'll just finish off and I'll hand it back to you. I'm sorry. but the thing that pisses me off most about this is, like, you literally have our government telling us, okay, they'll be like, hey, we're going to take your money, we're going to give it to another country on the other side of the planet so that they can buy weapons from us so that they can defend and pay for their own borders on the other side of the planet. But you over here can't do any of that. You can't have guns, you can't defend yourself, and you can't defend your country. Can't do none of that. But we're going to take your money to do it for somebody else. Like, the mental gymnastics that you have to jump through to make that make sense, I can't even fathom.
Well, if we don't want to become exactly that threat that they're trying to turn us into, the only solution to that and everything else is through cooperation, collaboration, and understanding where the priorities are. They give us no end to the number of things that we can squabble about because they want to make sure that we are not addressing the things that collectively that will force the change that they're so reluctant to make. And I think we've covered quite a number of the the highlight points, and there was a comment that did come up here, and I did want to make address this. Bear with me for just a second. 100%. Watch your local municipality, guys. This is the point of implementation. All of the policies are dreamt up in Geneva. Trudeau says, "Yep, I can do that," and it's kicked down, and the provincial parties kind of squabble a little bit about it. And while they're squabbling about it, you can bet some nudge groups or lobbyists are coming into the municipalities and saying, "We'll give you a bunch of money if you build a skate park over here, but you say this particular beetle is an endangered species and climate change is going to hurt its habitat. So we've got to restructure your zoning bylaws a little bit." And this is, as creepy as it sounds, that's in essence 100% of what they're doing. So it's happening at the municipal level. But this was a comment I was looking for. Maggie Braun is going to be joining me on the show, I believe, next Thursday. They're putting together a package on how exactly they stopped the 15-minute cities from developing in their municipalities, so that we can quantify and force multiply all of the golden nuggets that we're talking about in these Friday shows.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good example that should white pill everybody to some degree, is that action can be taken. The only reason these people are winning is because we gave up our civic duties and our ability to organize to other people, and we essentially farmed out our civic duties to other people that, like I mentioned earlier, is not working and is corrupt, right? So the front line of your community is supposed to be your municipality, right? And I live in Vancouver. There's a couple municipalities around me that are not too bad, but everybody's under the gun from above, right? So change has to happen on every single level for every community, right? So there's a group in Alberta called Take Back Alberta. They're doing some really good work for this exact thing. They're targeting counselors, getting mayors out, and all this sort of stuff. And that blueprint of you as an individual need to go and get organized with you in your community and go and take it to these people that are putting into place these authoritarian policies. Because if you don't, you will live under them. There's a great quote that I'm trying to remember that I think it was Socrates, that like the cost of being of ignoring politics is the cost of not following politics is to be ruled by evil men. I can't remember who said it, but that is essentially what is happening, right? We have ignored our civic responsibilities for literal decades, and I'm guilty of this as well, and now we're suffering for it. So get your shit together and start paying attention and do stuff about
it. I'm actually encouraged by the number of alternative solution-oriented organizations, or how they're becoming more and more solution-oriented in the victories, although are minimalistic at this point. At least there are a very quickly growing number of victories, and the sooner we get organized, the better, and the better organized we become, the faster we end this insanity and put Canada on a better path, because I'm pretty sure a herd of rocks could do better than these people in the establishment.
probably win the vote too.
They probably would.
Just before we finish, somebody asked a good question in the chat here. So Donnelly said, is it advisable to buy acreage? I'm torn between UN drip, taking land away, and having a place to grow my own food and raise animals. So this is a question of two things: the actuality of what you have access to and the ability for them to take it from you, right? So if you live in a city, and I've explained this before, there's an amount of calories that have to come into that city because the city does not produce its own food, right? So in all actuality, like the physical actuality of what we're facing, it is always going to be better to have your own property that you control, that you own, right? It's better if you own it outright, but if you can't own it outright, it's still better to have it than not have it. And then two, to be able to grow food on it and be able to collaborate with other people in your community, because you're going to be very limited to what you're able to access in a city. So if you have the ability or opportunity to get out of the city and get onto a farm or into a community where you can grow food, you're going to be in a much better position to fight what's coming, because eventually they're going to have to come to you. Eventually they will, and eventually they will try, but it's still, you're in a better position yourself and with a group of people that you know, like, and trust than you are in the middle of a city where you own nothing, and hopefully you're still happy, but you still own nothing, right? Because the expense of, and maybe I should say this too, is that there's a massive crash in real estate coming across the board. Commercial real estate, it's already happened to China. It's already happening all over the place. Not the least of which, one of the reasons that I think they're importing so many people is because they need to keep those prices high and demand high. But there is a reckoning coming, of the likes of which we haven't seen since 1929. And so when that happens, it's always going to be better to have actual physical resources that are under your control than not. So if that's the threshold for you, make that choice, because it's always going to be better.
100% agree. The more that you can control for your own basic survival, the better off you're going to be riding this out. I have so much pity for people that are stuck in cities and will not have access to those kinds of things. You guys had better start digging extra pantry cellars and filling them up. Ray Chicken Louie, I think I read in some areas 300% insolvency rate on.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention that today. So I've been talking for years, and I sort of we're going over a little bit now, but I think this is really important too. So I've been talking for years now. At some point, all of this stuff is going to come to a head. And you can look at what happened just before 2007, just before 2001, is there was a massive uptick in bankruptcies and delinquent mortgages. That is skyrocketing. So basically what that tells us is a couple things. Is that, number one, there's a whole bunch of people that are now out of money, out of savings, out of runway, no job, no income, that are like, I just can't pay it. They throw up their hands, they give their keys back. They're just like, I'm screwed and I'm out of here, right? And so now that is happening, now you're going to see the pressure on the downward pressure on the economy, which will depress other people's property values. And if you have anything related to that or connected to that mortgage, if you have like other loans and whatever, so as soon as that value of the property goes below what you have in owing on the property, that's the inversion. So now you can't get any sort of funding related to that property as a backup. And that's one of the ways a lot of people got through 2007. Is so this is starting now. Right. And so all of the other problems that I talked about, and I've talked about a whole bunch more beyond today, is that now you're going to see all of these different problems start to compound and make everything substantially worse. So now is the time to get prepared. So if you want to save your money in gold and silver, let me know.
Yeah, I was just gonna close off with that. Boy, we got a lot to carry on with next Friday, folks. This has been just episode number 2. We're gonna carry on with this and start bringing you guys some real meat and potatoes every week. The reason we're doing this is because Bryce has solutions available for people. I pushed him to do this for quite some time so that we could get this coordinated. But precious metals is the security moving forward, guys. Go over to whatsupcanada.org. That's where you'll find a link to New World Precious Metals. And you guys have got all kinds of solutions and a concierge type of service that you can help people out with their situations. Not that saying you guys aren't the go and buy a single silver dollar coin from, but you guys have genuine solutions for people with serious problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Wayne. I always appreciate this discussion, and look forward to chatting with you more soon. Absolutely.
Thanks, Bryce. All right, guys. Wow. Talk about taking a drink from a fire hose again. And, as we're just developing this show and what we're doing here with this, there's a whole bunch that we're going to start to siphon through, where we can bring you more and more articulated information, specifics, bills, laws, banking, that kind of stuff, so we can help you guys get ahead of the understanding of the chaos and crisis that is coming. So just make sure to bookmark, same time, same place, next Friday. This is going to be a recurring, regular, scheduled event. So long as I am not in a gulag, we'll keep doing this. But that's just one of the things that we're going to be focusing on over the next little while. You guys are seeing some changes on the What's Up Canada platform and LGM News. We're about this far close to announcing some major developments over on LGM.news to get ahead of the censorship and the Stasi, and protect your rights to privacy and access to information. So a lot on that coming up next week. Some great guests again, speaking to solutions, not just crying over problems. So on that note, thank you guys all for tuning in. If you guys found some value, please give it a thumbs up, a like, hit that big green thumb on over on Rumble. Get subscribed. Make sure that you're following us elsewhere, because as I saw a bunch of comments there, no, you are not going to get notifications on any of the current existing social media platforms. We're going to start adding more platforms to find us. Watch for us on Liberty, the Liberty Network, for live streaming as well soon. And final shout outs to our other sponsor that makes a lot of this possible is the people over at Patriot Switch. And I want to make just a point about this, guys. You know what I don't pay when I get my stuff from Patriot Switch that I don't get from Walmart or Costco anymore? I don't pay carbon tax and I don't pay GST. That alone is gratifying to me. Not only do I get better products and better service, but I defund not just BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, but I also defund our cabal. So check it out.